All right, welcome back. I think we're live. Feel free to drop me a comment, give me a shout out, say what's up in the chat box, and I'm gonna pop in and start answering questions. If this is your first time, I do this every Tuesday, 12 o'clock, and call it Looking for Work. So if you are a early career developer and you're looking for that first opportunity, feel free to drop any questions any questions that you have in either the comment field or I think in all the different platforms. We're on Facebook right now, Instagram, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitter, I think, or Twitch. I think for each of those, you can simply leave a comment and it'll come directly to me and I'll be able to answer your questions. So I'll throw that information along the bottom here as well. And I'm just checking on the platforms just to make sure I can see that we are actually live and people can, yes, people can see us. I see comments coming through. Good morning, Samita. Good to see you again. If you have any questions, feel free again, drop them in the chat box and I'll take my best attempt at answering those questions for you. My background is I've been writing software for a really long time. I've helped lots of people go through the process of learning to become software engineers and transition into entry-level roles at tons of companies. So I can tell you from my perspective what it's like when I'm on the hiring side and I'm looking for folks, which we are, by the way, so I'll give a plug for that in just a second. And again, everybody's opinion will vary a little bit. What is relevant is really what the hiring managers that you're applying for are looking for, but I can tell you sort of what I've seen and what my experience has been across a variety of different either hiring roles or working with hiring managers and what they're looking for. We have them give us feedback about our process and about what we do. So a little bit about San Diego Code School. We offer a registered apprenticeship program for folks that are looking to transition and become a software engineer, and we pay for the experience. So there's no cost to our participants. In addition, they get paid. So if you're thinking about transitioning into a career, then you can hit up our website. It's sdcs.io, and we will have a cohort starting soon, I hope. Every day people ask me, when are we going to start? We're going to start as soon as we get another agreement in place with employers, because the key is we want to make sure everybody that gets into the program, actually we have a place for them and a final destination where they're going to have a permanent role. And those aren't always the same. So any companies thinking about partnering with us, you don't necessarily have to commit to hiring somebody upfront to participate. There's lots of other ways that you can have some of your staff mentor. You can come in and give a talk. There's lots of different ways to participate and help our community of learners. So if you're a company and you're thinking about how can you make a difference in terms of diversity, inclusion, and equity, this is a great opportunity. Work with an organization like the San Diego Code School and give a chance to some folks that are just trying to get that foot in the door. This past week, kind of pushed back a little bit on the whole I need a senior, and I'll just say that I think for a lot of organizations, if they are hiring some junior engineers, that's awesome. And if they're not yet, there's always an opportunity for you to, in consideration of, hey, we need more staff, more resources, think about making longer term investments and maybe hiring maybe one mid and two juniors, or a senior and a couple juniors, so that the senior can be spending a lot of their time adding tons of value and not spending as much of their time in some of those tasks that can really be offloaded to someone that's earlier career for them to cut their teeth, get some experience, and get better. So I would encourage folks to reach out and see if there are opportunities for us to potentially help you build that pipeline of talented individuals that, are not coming from the 4-year CS degree pipeline. They're coming from a different place. And that's what my hope is, that we can kind of increase that pipeline across lots of different ways, alternative pathways for people to gain those skills. So I'll pause there. I see a couple questions coming through. So the first one here is applying to jobs, completing internship, but jobs are saying they need 1 to 2 years professional experience. Done panel talks, mentorship, volunteerism, but it's not professional experience that is desired to get hired. What more is there to do? I think the best thing that you can do is to continue to actually do the day-to-day activities of that particular role. So if it's if it's product owner, scrum master, if it's engineering. It really is the hands-on, and it is not the like speaking panels, engagements, the social media, like that kind of like brand building activity is interesting. But at the end of the day, the thing that's going to move the needle when a hiring manager says, hey, you're interested in this position, it's I've done this project and I've had this number of people that were sort of like being guided through the Scrum process, this number of teams, etc. I am not a huge believer that I can't get experience without a job, I can't get a job without experience is always 100% relevant, because there's still an opportunity for you to demonstrate your skill by working through the actual process, which may require you to work volunteer. This may require you to, take a lower level role that you can use to build up your experience. And it may not be the high dollar amount, but it'll be a start. And every start gives you more reps. And the key is to just be able to demonstrate that you have that experience. So hopefully that answers your question. It's not so much of like, chicken egg scenario, and it's much more of like, just do it and show that that's what your primary activity is. You're searching for work, you're a practitioner, and here's your practical experience doing those things. The other stuff, distraction. I'd say 100% heads down and focused on that. Hopefully that helps. Cruz Vargas, new to San Diego, any tips to find and connect with tech startups in the area, particularly those driving social mobility? Sure. So we've got some fantastic startup communities. The biggest and most well-known is San Diego Startup Week. So if you Google for San Diego Startup Week, that's sort of like the San Diego Startup like main organization. Lots of great founders, entrepreneurs in that ecosystem. There's a bunch of incubators and accelerator programs. So We the Plug is doing a lot of work. They're an incubator program, and so they're doing a lot of work to help with some of that sort of people that are transitioning, or like Black Latinx founders, and really trying to kind of again provide educational foundation and opportunities for people that are trying to build businesses. We have some really good programs that are run out of like the college and university systems. So at both like the community college, like the Miramar Rec, at like San Diego State University, UCSD. I'm involved in the entrepreneur residence program at UCSD. So I can tell you, like, they have a basement, they have a ton of resources, but that's largely for like the commercializing research and the science that's going on campus. So the thing that I would suggest that you do is really try and tap into an ecosystem that's also close to your domain. So you might say, well, you're more interested in like biotech and helping people sort of like with entrepreneurial visions that are in the biotech space. And then you can drill into that community. The other resource, I'll just leave one more, and that is there is a Slack group. There's a San Diego Startup Slack group, and that cuts across many of the organizations I just mentioned. So they're phenomenal folks there. In addition, that same group is on Clubhouse. They do a weekly thing Thursday nights. So there's a vibrant startup community here in San Diego. One of those folks is here, just left a message, Justin Renfro. My boy, Justin, what is going on? No code. And this is for startups. Oh yeah, absolutely. So Justin is one of my homies, and he is a really super cool guy in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So good to know Justin. I would connect with him as well, Cruz. So my take on low code is do it 100%. And so the idea of like for folks that are non-technical founders, what I often say is, rather than this pursuit of like, how do I find funding for my idea? How do I find a technical co-founder? Just take your idea and take a little bit of time and get at least enough knowledge to be able to build an MVP. That's it. And you can use low code, no code. You could use WordPress. Just get yourself to the point where you've got something that you can go out there and show. You got some traction. You got people signing up. You got people paying a small amount. That way, like, you can just like rev up the engine, and it'll be much, much easier for you to, one, try and convince a technical person to come on board and to basically jump ship from like a really cushy opportunity and think about, hey, they want to grow with your organization. It's not super appealing. Again, I hate to burst people's bubbles. But as a senior engineer, it's not super appealing to constantly have people pitching you this idea of like, this is my startup, and I'm looking for a technical person, and I need a senior to come help me out, and it's just for equity, and it's just like, all right, cool. What have you built? Well, nothing. It's just an idea. Go do some work. So I'd say there's a tremendous amount now of resources that doesn't even require you to do what I used to tell people like 3-4 years ago. Like, you know what you should do? Just go to a coding boot camp, spend 3 months and learn how to code, and then build the solution yourself. Now you don't have to raise like 50 grand, 100,000, $1 million to get your seed. Just invest enough in yourself to be able to build it and then build the product yourself. The low code, no code solution makes that even easier, even less expensive. So the resource that I would suggest, Justin asked a follow-up question, best resource about no code, I'd say there's 2 that I think are phenomenal. The first is truly like low code, no code, and that is an app called Bubble. And so you can go onto Bubble and you can basically drag and drop and create these workflows and create your application with like little to no code. The second way, if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, look, I just want to tie some things together, there's a ton that can be done with this thing called an API, right? That's a way for you to basically take and connect 2 different like sources of data or information and send stuff all over the place. Get into Zapier, right? Dig in. You can start a concept and you can create a business with like spreadsheets and Zapier and email and MailChimp and tie all those pieces together with no coding, just Zapier, right? The person like drops your information on the form, and then you can use Zapier, can go out there and can like maybe save it on an Airtable form for you, and then put them through a process that you use to create value for that individual. And so start with just the manual effort of like adding value for whatever your startup concept is. And then at least once you've gotten some traction, you've got some interested people, then you can talk to my boy Justin about, hey, how can you do some crowd fundraising, or how can you do something to kind of get you to that next level? So I think the easiest way to start with no code, low code is to look at something like either Bubble or Zapier. Airtable, another good solution. There's a lot that you can do with Airtable that kind of takes the work out of like organizing it. And in a lot of ways, like you can run a lot of like small, startup type ideas off of a spreadsheet. So I think Airtable is another great example. So hopefully that helps. I think those are my go-tos. Definitely my go-tos. Nice. All right, Justin, I got you. I'll send you all those folks. Now we should definitely let's connect. Matthew Rogers, here's a good question. What would you consider a project which is shown to a hiring manager that would impress them more than any other? Similarly, what's the question that impressed you the most when asked of me as an interviewer? Okay, so first half, very interesting. So we had a candidate at one of the organizations that I was at that came in for a job interview. And pro tip number 1, bring a project, right? So you're asking a perfect question, Matthew. Bring something, because you get to do what I call the filibuster, right? You'd be like, hey, would you like to see some of my project work? And now you can just eat up the clock, right? You're doing game time clock management. And you're basically able to have a conversation where you and the hiring folks in the room with you, the other engineers, are just going to nerd out, right? Because we're super interested and curious, like, what technology did you use? How did you build it? What does the code look like? How does it work, right? And so a great, fantastic idea is to really have an interesting project. Now, interesting doesn't necessarily mean it has to be super complex. I would say it should be a good reflection of what your skill level is, and it shows sort of a variety of things that you can talk about. So if you're a full stack software engineer, make sure it demonstrates something on the front end, something on the back end. Make sure that you can show the repository, you can show how you're deploying the code, you can show sort of all of those pieces that tie together and create a cohesive, easy to manage, easy to maintain project. It does not necessarily need to be something that's like super impressive. But this person that came in created this awesome game, and it was like this tank battle game. And you could drive a little tank around and you could shoot other tanks. And so it was a multiplayer type deal. It was pretty impressive. Now, we didn't end up hiring him, but we did, as an office, end up playing that game all the rest of the day. So the moral to that story is have something interesting, something unique. And what impresses me more than anything else is when you can demonstrate passion. What does not impress me is when you do like a ride-along project where you watch a Udemy video or something on YouTube, And then you basically just recreate that project and you create some like window dressing around it where it's like, oh, well, that project was about this, but I changed the theme and the colors. And it's like, no. I want you to really think about a problem and then something unique or interesting. So I'll give you an idea, right? It's probably not your passion project, but I'm learning how to play the drums, right? So I'm not a rock star yet, but I'm getting better. It's been about a month, so I might be able to go out on the road pretty soon. That said, I'm using this app, and the app is kind of like Guitar Hero, where the notes come across and you just play them, and if you play them right on time, then everything sounds good. And it can kind of tell you, hey, you missed this number of notes, and this is what you should hit this, and instead you hit that. But what I found super interesting about that is like started getting more into like, oh, how does MIDI work, and how do they put these sounds together, and is there any software out there? Can I build a version of this? That would be a perfect project. Just a little project where it could be like, look, let me build a digital drum set. Let me build something I could trigger and get different sounds. Awesome. Then you set that project aside, you work on something else. What if I could take, regular audio files and break them off and remove the drums so I could play along with the drums or play along with the song without having the drum track there? Awesome. That could be another small project that you break off and you see if you could solve. So my brain sort of works that way. What is the tangible thing that I would then be able to bring into an interview and say, hey, I have a couple of these little things that I thought would be kind of part of my hobby, something that would be kind of cool. And here's how I solve that problem. That's the most interesting. The second half of your question, something that impresses me most when people ask about it as an interviewer, I'm a simple type of dude. I just want to know, are they really curious about what it's like to work at the organization? And so I'm not generally impressed by questions about like, what are your benefits like? What is the work culture like? Those kinds of things, because they just seem like they're pretty cliche. The question that I would suggest that you ask if you're really interested in the culture is, do you like working here? Simple. If they say yes, they probably don't like their job. If they say, sure, and here's the reasons why, then I think it's an engaging dialogue and there's a good conversation there. And they might be starting to sort of like turn a quarter and start pitching you on why you should want to continue the process and why you should accept why you should accept the position if they offer you one. So I think that's a great question. It's just like super simple. Do you like working here? And see what they say. If is it a one-word answer, it's not good. But if it's like enthusiastic with support, I think you get a lot out of that. And I appreciate it when people are just like super transparent. So anything that is like a real legit question and not like a boilerplate question that some site said these are the top 4 questions to ask, I think they're good. And if it's relevant, like, hey, we talked a little bit about this technology and I know that your company does X, Y, and Z. What would be some of the things that I'd be working on in the next 3 to 6 months if I were brought onto this team, right? What kinds of opportunities are there for me to work on? Insert thing that you're really passionate about. Like those would be interesting, I think, and questions I value versus like the how many days of PTO do you get? That was not good. Sam asks, what is a great way to build a small team for a venture? Considering a business plan is in place with a clear MVP, where can we find interested co-founders with tangible means to participate in the process? Depends on what you need. I mean, team building is like super critical to the success of your startup. And so I would first identify who's going to add the most value in terms of like where are the pieces of your organization that you feel like could be strengthened the most by adding. We need one person that's going to like head software development and our initial architecture and sort of like own that process. So somebody that's like super seasoned can be the principal engineer. Great. That person you can identify, etc. That person isn't always the person that's going to be like your CTO and be able to help grow the organization and grow a team of engineers. So think about that as well. That the personalities that you need may not be the same people. They may not be the same humans. You might need a great person to come in and be a principal architect and like help you build that first version of the application. And you may need at a later date a separate individual to come in and help you build out an engineering team. They're not always the same skill set. In fact, they're frequently not the same skill set. I think it's always good to have co-founders that are sort of like a good balance of your personality too. So if you're somebody that for the most part, you're just like on fire, peel you off the ceiling, super active, super engaged, then you probably want someone that can kind of like balance it out and be sort of like mellow and middle of the road. So that's what I usually think. And it's hard to know without like knowing who do you currently have. But I just look for like the team has to fill all of the different buckets that are needed for the business to be successful. And I think being well balanced and having, if you've got somebody that's like a super, like just a charismatic, just like an Elon Musk, just like could be good, but could also go sideways really fast, then you need to have like the straight person that can just be like, all right, I'm going to balance this out. I'm going to keep us more even, that kind of thing. So hopefully that helps, Sam. I think it's more of like philosophically plugging holes, but team in having the right people is like way more important than the idea. That's the key to the execution. Oh yeah. Appreciate that, Matthew. What are questions to ask what are questions to ask an interviewer? I mentioned a couple. So I think if you are, it depends on what you're trying to figure out. Like if you're trying to figure out, like, is this a good culturally or an organization that gives back? You might want to ask questions about like, what is this organization's belief about promoting from within? How does the organization think about partnerships and organizations that it partners with, its impact on the local economy, like questions like that. And hopefully they've got good, solid answers. If they don't know, then that's a red flag that maybe these things aren't a priority in the organization, and maybe they're just like heads down focused on like building widgets and selling widgets and that kind of thing. So I like to see if I can gain insight that's not available from like public front-facing research that you can do, and things that you'd only know if you're inside the organization. Like, what's the culture like? Is this a work hard, play hard environment, or is this an environment where everybody's a little bit more relaxed and takes a much longer view of like development, deployment, all those kinds of things? So that's personally what I'm most interested in about opportunities, is some of those like things that are just like harder for you to gather without like specifically asking someone that works there. When I'm networking on LinkedIn and I haven't heard back, would I recommend using an email finder to send a cold email for the first contact? Is this rude? No, I don't think it's rude at all for you to reach out via email. I think if you can find a work email for somebody, you probably will get a higher rate of responses given the same message, given a like just a, hey, love the work that you're doing, super impressed by company, insert what they do and why you think they'd be a great connection. Short, like 2 or 3 sentences. I think from my perspective that you'll get a higher open and conversion rate than LinkedIn, because a lot of people aren't on LinkedIn that often. So one pro tip I have when you're stalking folks on LinkedIn is look to see how frequently do they post. That's not always a great indication if the person's really active, because some people aren't posters. They're on LinkedIn all the time just consuming information, but they never comment, they never post. But it can give you sort of a rough sense of like, okay, it's going to take a while for me to hear back from this person because they're not like super posting and active. On the other hand, if they're way super inactive, then they may disregard your reach out because they get a lot of reach outs. So they just can't keep up with their inbox. So the sweet spot is maybe somewhere in the middle where they seem to be active, but they're not like super influencer active, right? And if you don't hear from them, sure, send a few emails to their work, because most people have to check their work email, so they're going to see them. Remember, I don't think it's pesting at all. In fact, I personally don't respond to cold emails until a person sends at least 2. On the second cold email, if it's interesting, at that point, maybe I have a conversation with somebody. But if someone sends me a cold email, I never respond on the first one, because I don't know yet if they're a go-getter and they're willing to follow up. But if they're willing to send a couple emails and be like, hey, would still love to chat with you, I like that. Okay, Christina, focus on your job search. What are you doing? Sam is asking, as an interviewer, so as an interviewer, what are some questions to ask about building a team, I think is what you're saying. So questions to ask about building a team. what I would want to know is what skills are you going to bring to the team that are going to help us get closer to our goal, and let them first see if they can, or if they're able to be self-reflective and give you some like real tangible things and results, or if it's like just a bunch of fluff and talk. Like, I'm a fast learner. It's like, no, like, I want to know what tangibly you think you could do to like bring some results that are going to move the needle for us. It's also interesting to see if they're willing to ask some questions of you before they start prescribing solutions, or they just jump in and give you solutions without having enough information for them to be super relevant. So I think those could be super informative, like how they respond to like questions that require them to dig a little bit deeper. So I tend to ask questions that are much more open-ended, like how do you, I might ask a question about prioritization, like how would you handle the situation where you're given too much work for a given period of time? How would you go about establishing a new product or a line of business for us if like this doesn't work out? What would you do next? If right now you had to take over and like restart, rebuild, what do you think you could do given the resources that like we have at our availability? And see like how creative are they with coming up with solutions, and you know what they think their role would be, how they would go about solving problems. I generally want to know that piece because I work with a lot of engineers, and so I don't know what's their thought process, what's their communication style. I think it's good to find out like how do people like to communicate, how do they like to be managed. I think those are good questions to establish, is this person going to be a good fit within what you can do in terms of your leadership style and how you're organizing your startup. Because if there's conflicts there, if those things don't align, and if someone says that, hey, I'll be transparent, my personality is I'm a kick me, I need people to constantly be like kicking me and keeping me pushing forward. If no one's like driving me, then I tend to like back off, and I don't really do a good job of setting goals. I need an accountability partner, etc. Like, that's fine if you can fulfill that role, if you can set clear goals and clear milestones, if you can create leading indicators and key performance indicators, and if you can have a structure for that person, awesome. They could be a super good performer. So you'll want to figure that out. Like, does that mesh with your leadership style? So yeah, so if I were interviewing other people to form on a startup team, I want to know, what do I have? Do I have people that are, negative Nancy and they always got something to say? Or are they people that are like super positive, but you're going to need to do some more like professional development? Maybe they're like over enthusiastic, and instead they really need to like rein it in and focus on a smaller set of things. And you can do a really good job of coaching and helping that person sort of professionalize their skill set. So I like to kind of know like what it is that attracted the person to the conversation, and again, why they think they can add value to an organization. So hopefully that helps. I know it's all over, Sam, but hopefully that gives you some ideas for some questions you can pull out of there. Cool. I think that's all the questions I had so far. I think I covered everything that came through. Anybody have any other questions? I know we delved into some startup stuff today, but it's good. I like that. Alrighty. Might make this like an all things tech. Ask me anything. One thing I am seeing about the marketplace, I am seeing that the market is starting to kind of, more people are putting out job postings. I'm seeing a lot more job postings, even folks posting for junior engineers, early careers, folks with less experience. So I am seeing that sort of like pick up. So Christina asks, if you have one software to learn, what should it be to have a background in it? Are you talking about programming language, or are you talking about like a framework or language to know? Could you clarify a little bit more about one software to learn? That's kind of, I think, too broad for me to know what direction you're going in. So yeah, so if you could say, yeah, clarify a little bit what you mean by that, I think that would help. For more experienced individual, what if your interviewer isn't as strong? Okay, so you're in a scenario where you as a senior software engineer are basically more technical than the person that's interviewing you. I think that's fine. I think it is incumbent upon you then to be able to demonstrate that you can clearly communicate to folks that are maybe below your technical expertise. Because as a senior software engineer, there's going to be a lot of situations where you're talking to folks on the product side of things that aren't as technical. And so I think that gives you an awesome opportunity for you to use those skills that you have to effectively communicate to a less technically savvy person than you. Even if they are technical, they're maybe less technical than you. Got to be able to break it down and be able to make it like relevant and easy for them to understand. So, and the only other piece that I would add is like, if they're wrong, be polite about their wrongness and don't get into an argument with someone about an implementation, because I have seen that before, where a person will just like refuse to acknowledge that like during a coding exercise or something that there is some difference of opinion, and that, you know, there's the rightness and wrongness becomes the issue. And it's like, that's not appropriate for a job interview. Just say, hey, we have a different way of solving the problem, or, you know, different view, but I would try and keep it positive, right? And don't make it a confrontational issue. Not that that was your question, but I think sometimes that's what it leads to when there's a difference in the skill levels. Invaluable and very applicable. Nice. I like that. Those are two good adjectives. Programming language to understand and work with devs more seamlessly. I mean, I would say if you're doing web stuff, then knowing and understanding JavaScript and understanding sort of like what makes most of the interactivity, the user experience happen would be helpful. I think outside of that, it would be helpful for you to have some, whatever the language is, like some grasp on a programming language is obviously better than none. And so I would go with, you know, the more popular ones these days are going to be like C#, Java, Python. Having a grasp on any of those languages would allow you to do a better job sort of understanding how do software developers think about solving complex problems. How do they destructure problems and break large problems into small problems? How do they think about algorithms and like how much time and resources are needed for doing whatever the process is, right? So like how complex, like how hard is this problem for the computer to actually do? I think, like I said, any of those. So pick a popular one. Pick one that's like pretty easy for you to find resources in terms of like either self-taught or, you know, curriculum that's available. That I think would make more sense than trying to say this particular language is going to give you a leg up with dealing with like all software engineers. I think any would be enough for you to have a better sense of how software engineers typically think about breaking down a problem, which could be very different than how a UX designer might think about breaking down a problem, or someone on a product team might think about designing it for an end user. Big difference between how it looks and how it functions and what it takes to actually build that. Big difference. Structuring time, 10 applications to any advice around prioritization. I think there should be enough time in the week to do that amount. And so given, 2 networking activities per week, so given the fact that they're online and remote, that's, roughly 2.5, 3 hours worth of time there. And then, 10 applications is going to require you to be reaching out to individuals, making contact with someone, and then completing the application, doing a little bit of research, et cetera. So it is a full-time job. I'd give you that. It is something that it is going to take you all week if you're doing it right. And I've given ratios before about the percentage of time, but you've also missed a couple other ones that I think should also be in there. And so the prioritization, the way I think a lot of people like just hack their lives and solve it is really like time box and focus on like mapping out throughout the week. This is the time you're going to spend doing each of the activities. Here's so much time, like from 9 until 11, you're going to do the reach outs. And then from 12 until 1, you're going to do your follow-ups. And then 1 until 5, you're going to work on your passion projects for Monday. And then Tuesday, this is what your day looks like. I would actually map your week out and make sure you're setting some goals and milestones and not just arbitrarily saying, hey, this week I want to make sure I get to 10. It should be, well, if I got to get to 10, that means I got to do 2 a day. So stay on a pace to do 2 a day. I think that will help in treating it like a job. If you had an employer, you were at an employer, you wouldn't be able to say, okay, I'm supposed to deliver 10 a week. Check back with me on Friday and see where we're at. Like your employer would want to know incrementally, what are you doing? What are the steps you're taking each day that will build upon getting those 10 out the door by the end of the week. So hopefully that helps. Like writing down a weekly schedule and sticking to it, I think is the way that you achieve that prioritization. Because then at least you know, right? Then get an accountability partner, someone that you share, hey, I'm on a job search. This is what I'm doing. I got to do 10 a week. Then set up the spreadsheet and then share your spreadsheet with that person and be like, okay, here's my spreadsheet. This is what I did this week, right? That way you can hold yourself accountable. Yeah, I don't know that the number is going to be exactly the same. Christina is giving some numbers here. I think that the goal is making, it's a numbers game like anything else, doing the right activities throughout the week that are going to lead to a higher percentage of responses, et cetera. So we talked about one earlier, reaching out on LinkedIn or reaching out via email, very high quality, and don't have any fear or worry at all about someone being frustrated that they're getting like a cold email. It's like send 2 or 3 until they say, stop emailing me, or, hey, I'd love to talk, right? Just keep going. Now, you want to send them 10 emails in the same day. You don't want to be like a crazy stalker. But if you send them one email and then you wait a few business days and then you send another email message and then you wait a few business days and they're not responding, as long as it's not a bounced email, then keep going. Set a holdover. And then on the day that you're doing your reach outs, shoot another message out. By the time they get your 4th or 5th email and it's like, hey, just want to check back with you. Here's a link to my repo. I just posted a new project. Eventually they're going to be like, man, this person is tenacious. Let me check out the link. And they're going to go to your repo. They're going to look and see what's on your repo, right? What does your GitHub look like? So it's a process of just doing all of those steps and being consistent that will eventually result in an opportunity. And it's a numbers game. Remember, the person that you're sending the email to is probably super busy. So, I mean, they're looking to hire people. So it's not like they're not doing well. They're busy. And so it might take 2 or 3 emails before they're like, oh yeah, sure. So just keep reaching out. Just use a spreadsheet so you can keep track of it, and then make sure that you know, okay, I reach out to them today. So in 2 days, I need to reach out to them again. In 3 days, I need to reach out to this person again. And even the ones that say, look, we're going to take a pass right now. We're just not ready. We're looking for someone who's a little bit more experienced. So keep us in mind for the future. Great. Set a holdover for like 6 weeks. And in 6 weeks, reach back out to the company if that job is still posted. Be like, hey, I said that you still have the posting up and you're looking for someone with 5 to 6 years of experience. While I don't have 5 to 6 years of experience, this is what I've done over the last 6 weeks. And then, link to your project, link to what you're working on. So you're top of mind, and they'll probably be like, yo, this is bizarre. We told you that we're looking for some more experience. Awesome. I'm working on it. I'm working on a new project right now. Right? You just be positive. It'll happen. Yes, I like that. Stretch between tasks and do outs. That's it. That's the job. The job is doing as many reach outs and follow ups as you can during that time frame. Then the rest of your time frame should be learning new things or working on your passion projects. Like that's the combination of tasks. Reach outs, follow ups, learning new things, working on your passion projects. Rinse and repeat. Get a job. Any other questions? These are good ones. Anybody else? Oh. Informational interview. What's a professional way to ask for an opportunity to work or volunteer without sounding desperate? Volunteer. Okay, so those are really two different things, right? When you say work, like you're asking for a job, right? So if they have a job opening, then I would pitch. I would say, hey, what you're looking for in this open role that you have, I think I'd be a perfect fit, and here's why. And you just ask for the opportunity. Like, I think I'd be a perfect fit for this role. I know maybe it's not open, right? And you're like, hey, we talked, and you said your company values X, Y, and Z. I think I'd be perfect for a role. Do you think there's a chance that you could, find a part-time role that aligns with these skills and does X, Y, and Z for the business, right? So ask for an actual job, not a volunteer. And then when you're talking volunteer, then my radar goes up, because now I'm thinking, okay, you are desperate and you're showing signs of being desperate if you're looking to volunteer at a for-profit company. If it's a nonprofit, great. If you want to volunteer at a nonprofit, awesome. Here's the fear that I have with a lot of folks that look for an unpaid opportunity, is that they tend to take their foot off the gas, because they tend to think, oh, I get an internship with this company, I'm going to help them work on this project. And then eventually, in the back of their brain, they're thinking, eventually, I will get an offer from this company. And so now I can kind of not have to do the hard stuff of the job search, because that's not fun. I don't like doing that. I would much rather spend, the whole week just coding than spend half my time coding, half my time looking for a job. I don't like that process. So folks are looking to tap out, and in some cases, take either an unpaid internship or an unpaid opportunity to come in and prove their worth. But what I want you to realize is that there's a lot of bad apples out there in terms of companies that are willing to do something that's illegal, at least in California, which is having people come in and work without being paid unless they're in a structured educational program. And then the other part to that is that in their brain, they're thinking, oh, I'm giving this person all this experience, and then I can give them a letter, and that letter could then be used to help them get a foot in the door somewhere else, or I can connect them to this other company. And so in their brain, they are not anywhere even processing hiring you, right? So I just, again, caution you that it may seem like it's an opportunity to get your foot in the door and find a way for them to hire you, but it could be very clear in the brain of that person that's not what's happening. And you want to have your foot on the gas the whole time. You want to, while you're doing that, still be actively doing the job search, which is why, to me, it makes more sense to just work on your own passion projects than go and work as a volunteer for somebody else, unless it's a nonprofit that you really care about the mission, et cetera. And that's what you're doing for your personal time, and not that for a job opportunity, because you don't need to work for somebody else to build up your portfolio. You don't need to do it. And you will find that when you do it, if you do choose to go down this path, the evil path, the dark side, and volunteer, that it's just really hard for you to keep the pressure on, because in the back of your mind, you're just if I just do a great job, they'll hire me. If I just work really hard, they'll hire me. And they're not thinking that at all in most cases. In most cases, they're just oh man, we're giving this person all this experience, and he's going to land a job, and he's going to be great. We're going to be so proud of him. And meanwhile, you're not even looking for a job, because you're just heads down working hard, trying to prove value and worth. So very, very, very careful about that process. I've seen lots of folks do the unpaid internship route. Doesn't work out well. It's not a good one. Any other questions? Yep. Absolutely. Wow, we got deep today. Got a lot of questions answered. I like that. All right. If anybody else has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the box. If I don't see any in the next few seconds, then I'm going to peace out. It's been great getting this much interactivity. So if you think this is helpful, please give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a comment of some kind, and feel free to share this within your network. If you know other people that are looking for work or looking for like the holy grail of like, I just got to get the right process ironed out, more than happy to, answer these questions and help people work through what that process is. That's way more efficient and effective than the things that folks think that are like the intuitive solution to solving this, which is just like, I'm just going to apply on Indeed. And eventually someone will like give me an interview and then I'll crush it and I'll get a job. That process is not usually the way people get jobs. It's because most of the opportunities are not posted on like Indeed, right? It's usually somebody that prior to them even posting the job, they tell everybody inside of the shop, like, hey, we're going to open up a position. And so people inside the shop tell their friends and have their friends apply. And so it's like, it's not on the surface what you might think or what might work in a lot of other places. It's just a very different ecosystem environment. That said, if you work hard and you just treat it like a job and you ask questions and you get answers and you tweak your process, and if your process is efficient, it doesn't take that long to get a job. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you're in a shop and you're like loving it. If it's taking longer than that, it's usually because your process is broken. Very important. It's usually because your process is broken. It could be broken in a couple of different places. So by having that like a spreadsheet, I can look at the spreadsheet and say, oh, okay, well, if you pick this up, it'll probably help in these other areas. And then it might not solve all the problems, but at least we get that problem solved. We can focus on other parts of the process. But the process is like, it's hard, but it's very straightforward. Like what you need to do is actually very clear. You need to reach out to people. You need to follow up with them. You need to have a portfolio. You need to have passion projects. If you do all those things and you follow an efficient way of doing that, you're going to get a job. There's plenty of them out there. Even though everybody wants only senior engineers, everybody just wants experienced people, there's not enough of them. So what happens is eventually people realize, maybe I have to hire a junior and train them. And there's where your opportunity comes in. All right. I think that's all we got for questions. I don't see any other ones coming through. So if you're interested in chopping it up tonight, we've got a JavaScript meetup. So head over to I think I'll just give the meetup location. So this is San Diego JS has got the meetup happening tonight, first Tuesday of the month. So big shout out. Cher is going to give a talk tonight. Come out, hang out, nerd out with us. Yeah, that's it. Peace.